Hello and welcome to the viewers of this video. This is the Orange Fan here, bringing you another entry for the episode Recap and Thoughts category. This video will be dedicated to the A segment of episode 25 of The Loud House, The Price of Admission. We begin this segment with Lincoln showing his parents a movie trailer on his smartphone, so he's able to show videos on it. The movie trailer is a scary movie called The Harvester, and apparently it's coming out on the Friday of the week that this segment takes place on. But Rita doesn't want Lincoln to see the movie, saying that he's going to end up being terrified of it and it'll make him jumpy and paranoid and what have you. Lincoln insists that he'll be fine if he sees it, but Rita still says no. And she says that Lincoln is not so different from his dad when it comes to scary movies. We actually do see that is the case. Lynn Sr. was quite terrified of the trailer, and he doesn't want it playing when he's around anymore. He tries to pass it off as some other reason, but we know that really is the reason. So on Friday night, Lincoln and Clyde are heading to the movie theater, and they're planning to see a movie about Blarney. He was that Irish-themed Barney stand-in who... I think he first appeared in For Bros About to Rock. He was the Blarney concert was the concert that the twins, that was their first concert, and Luna wanted to make it memorable. Yeah, he's back, and he's got a movie. And Clyde's actually quite excited to see the Blarney movie, and he's glad he doesn't have to see The Harvester. But Lincoln's still a little disappointed that he isn't allowed to see the movie. But then he and Clyde actually both notice, because the rooms for both where the Blarney movie is and where the Harvester movie is, they're right next to each other in the hallway. And they both notice that the Bike Gang trio, Papa Wheelie, Flat Tire, and Rusty Spokes, are all going in to see the Harvester. This surprises Lincoln because he mentions that Rusty gets easily startled. I think he mentioned, apparently a bird got into the gym one time and Rusty was terrified. And this actually convinces Lincoln to defy Rita's stance on the topic and go and watch the movie anyway. Clyde expresses his disapproval of this by singing a Blarney song about lying, but he leaves Lincoln to his own devices as he goes to watch the Blarney movie. Clyde goes to watch the Blarney movie while Lincoln watches The Harvester. By the time the movies are complete, we do see the audience from The Harvester walking out, and besides the Bike Gang trio, Agnes Johnson saw The Harvester too. I wonder if she noticed that four students from the elementary school went and saw that movie. But in any case, Lincoln's the last one out, and he's very shaken up about it. And when Clyde tries to get his attention to see how the movie was, Lincoln is very jumpy, and Clyde says he got his answer. And he walks back with Lincoln. He walks back with Lincoln to Lincoln's house to keep him company, especially after what happened. And Clyde says he'll have his walkie-talkie on hand if Lincoln needs to talk to him after the experience he went through. And when Lincoln enters the house, he finds out that the family's already setting up they call it the fall decorations, but they do have a very Halloween feel to it. So we can probably assume that it's October that this takes place in the month of October probably. But in any case, Lynn Sr. wants Lincoln to find some pumpkin decorations, but he can't quite remember where they are exactly, so he keeps sending Lincoln to very places that would be considered rather scary at nighttime for a kid, especially if they saw a scary movie. So the basement, the attic, and the garage, and it's not in any of those places. it's at that point Lynn Sr. finally remembers that they're in the crawl space outside, but it's very small and claustrophobic. But he doesn't bother to send Lincoln there. He says he'll just do it himself in the morning. And when nighttime rolls around, yeah, Lincoln's very scared. And unfortunately for Lincoln, the parents don't want any of the lights on. So Lincoln tries to get the attention of some of his other sisters, hoping they'll keep him company. But for one reason or another, they don't stick around, and understandably so. I mean, it is nighttime, and you're trying to get to sleep. You can't. So poor Lincoln, though, he can't find someone to keep him company the whole time he's awake in terror. And he even actually calls Bobby, orders a pizza, because Bobby's current job, or the one he's doing right now, is pizza delivery. So he actually tries to get Bobby over here too. But Bobby, unfortunately, his schedule won't let him stay there to hang out as much as he'd like to. And Clyde actually is asleep, despite saying he'd be there for Lincoln 24/7, as Lincoln himself points out. So he ends up... Actually, yeah, he doesn't sleep at all the whole night, and... yeah, that's not too good. And by the time he gets downstairs that morning, the Rita reveals that they actually decided that, yeah, they'll let Lincoln see the movie, and they even got tickets, not just for him, but the both of them as well. Lincoln's a little surprised about this, to say the least. And and when they get to the movie theater, but before they actually enter the room, Lincoln finally confesses that he went and saw the movie, even though they told him not to, and that Rita was right about him being terrified of and paranoid. And Rita actually, while she's not happy with Lincoln going against her wishes, she does decide that Lincoln's already been punished enough by his paranoia. So they end up going to see the Blarney movie instead, or they're preparing to. And Lynn Sr. tries to pretend, oh, we'll have to watch the movie later, just you and me, to Rita. But yeah, we see that he's quite content with watching the Blarney movie. And yeah, that's how the segment ends, with them deciding to go see the Blarney movie instead. Now, this segment and its sibling segment, you could say that they were they were sort of Halloween-esque segments without actually being on Halloween. And that's kind of amusing, because season 2, we actually do get a full episode that takes place on Halloween. So this was sort of like the Halloween... yeah, episode 25 of The Loud House was like the Halloween episode before the actual Halloween episode came around. And yeah, I'd say it definitely had a very, it had the theme of Halloween very well, with the whole scary horror thing going on. And yeah, the idea of a kid getting scared after seeing a scary movie, I'm sure that's very relatable for many people. And yeah, even adults don't like scary movies all the time. Like, Lynn Sr. didn't like it, and I do know a few relatives of mine who are adults that aren't fond of scary movies either. So it was definitely a very relatable experience. And let's see, what else can we talk about? Oh, that's right. This segment actually had Mr. Grouse appear throughout it. I didn't get to mention it in the recap, but during Lincoln's paranoia, there was 3 different instances of Mr. Grouse. Like, Lincoln, or actually Lynn Sr. was the 3rd time, Lincoln was the first 2. But it turned out it was just Mr. Grouse doing everyday things. Like, first he was just gardening in the middle of the night for some reason. And then he went night fishing at one point and was coming back home from it. And he was actually going to watch The Harvester at the end of the segment. That's what got Lynn Sr. jumpy, because he was just opening a bag of chips he got from the food stand. So that was pretty cool to see Mr. Grouse in a slightly more prevalent role. I mean, it still wasn't really a big role for him, but compared to his earlier appearances, it was more than before. So I thought that was a kind of a nice sign that Mr. Grouse was becoming more important than when he was just the neighbor, credited as the neighbor in his earlier appearances. And this is the yeah, I think this might be the last segment, if I'm remembering right. This is the last segment where we see Rusty hanging out with Papa Wheelie and Flat Tire. Because, like I mentioned for Dance Dance Resolution, Rusty pretty much hangs out with Lincoln, Clyde, Liam, and Zach. More so starting with Dance Dance Resolution, with this one being kind of the odd appearance of him hanging out with his fellow biker fellow bike riders. And and this segment was another good example of the serialized aspects of the series because, like I mentioned back in A Fair to Remember, Lincoln did say to Bobby that they could still have their figurative brother bond, just not to the point where it would interfere with Lori's time with Bobby. And we do get to see that here when Lincoln was asking Bobby to he ordered the pizza from Bobby and wanted him to stay so they could celebrate, but Bobby's schedule prevented him from doing so. So that was a nice nod. They didn't forget that Lincoln and Bobby are now they have a closer bond compared to earlier on in the series. So it was nice they remembered that. So there you have it. I really did enjoy this segment a lot. It had some nice callbacks and a few nice nods here or there, and it definitely gets you in the Halloween spirit, or if you're just like the scary movie sort of spirit, because I guess people can watch scary movies any time of the year. But I liked it, and yeah, I thought it was cool how this segment and its sibling segment actually had some similar themes to it, since they both were, like I said, Halloween sort of, but not actually on Halloween. And as to be expected, we'll be covering the B segment next. Take care, and until next time.